Hello and welcome to In the Skies of Love, a podcast dedicated to the classic anime series Legend of the Galactic Heroes. My name is Kamal, and I invite you to accompany me as I make my way through this classic space opera for the first time. Joining us on our voyage are our guides Tom and Joel, two die-hard fans. Together we'll be reviewing and analyzing each episode of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, exploring its complex characters, intricate political machinations, and breathtaking space battles. We'll delve into the themes, symbols, and historical references that make this series a timeless classic, sharing our thoughts and insights with you as we journey through the skies of love and war in Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Sit back, relax, and join us on this epic adventure.
Can I just say it's very nice to be back? We took a little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, we did. But I really am happy to be watching this again now.
Yeah.
As we were planning to re-record this, I got just more and more excited about watching the episodes again and sitting down to watch them. I felt very cozy to be back in that space.
Yeah, it's like being embraced by like a warm blanket or something, going back to Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It feels Christmassy, despite the fact it's now stupidly hot here in Japan and stupidly humid. Okay, so we're doing episodes 8 and 9 today, which is it's an Imperial arc, and who's doing the synopsis this time?
Do you want me to read one?
I feel like you did it last time, actually. I'm happy to read one this time.
You just like the name of this episode, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can have a discussion about the episode names because they're both great. So this first one, episode 8, is Cool, Clear, Artificial Eyes. And the synopsis is, Paul von Oberstein, Chief of Staff of the Isilon fleet, is in trouble. He saw through Yang Wenli's plan, but his commander didn't listen to him, and he fled before the destruction of the fleet. The 3 chiefs of the Imperial fleet resign, but want to make him responsible of the defeat. Oberstein meets Reinhard von Lohengram and explains how, like him, he hates the High Nobles and the Goldenbaum dynasty, and offer his help. Reinhard agrees and obtains his pardon by advising the Emperor to refuse the chiefs' resignations. Once again delivered with all of the typos intact from the Legend of the Galactic Heroes fan wiki. So what are your feelings on this episode, Kamal? You want to give us your...
My overall view of... We watched episodes 8 and 9, and together, I think these are my 2 favorite episodes of the show. I really, really enjoyed these. They felt a bit like... there is a comparison to... there's certain episodes of The West Wing where they invite foreign dignitaries for like fancy dinners. And there's all sorts of behind the scenes stuff going on during the fancy dinner with like diplomatic relations and stuff and political drama. Felt like one of those episodes. It reminded me a little of Downton Abbey as well. I'm speaking generally across the two. And even a little bit of Game of Thrones when it was good. So it was, I really enjoyed these 2.
I think this is the first time we really delve into what's happening on the Empire side. We've seen a little bit on the Free Planets Alliance side, like what's happening at home. But I think this is the first glimpse that we get into the politics that are taking place in the Empire.
Yeah, I think I also really loved both of these episodes. I was quite surprised, I guess, with how like cohesive and how together both of them felt, especially compared that coming off the back of the last 3, which although they were very fun, I think we both had some issues with the way that the writing was handled and the way the pacing was handled. These 2 felt extremely solid, like just very tightly written, and night and day. Before we kind of dive deeply into the discussion of the episode, shall we quickly do fan mails and corrections section, which is a section of the podcast that I don't think any of us ever thought that we would be
surprised.
Yeah. So we received an email from, I don't know if are they a fan? There was some warmth to the email. A listener. And so thank you very much for writing in, first of all. And this was basically, there's a couple of things. So there was one about the inconsistent art style that we mentioned, going back to the previous 3 episodes. And this person emailed us to let us know that the inconsistent art style is a result of there being multiple studios involved. So the El Flashel flashbacks with Frederica were drawn later for the Blu-ray and DVD releases of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, as the original cells and film masters were damaged in an office flooding. Although when both of us, all 3 of us and this person looked for evidence of this office flooding, I don't think anything, we couldn't uncover anything. So yeah, that's sort of a correction or a piece of information that was very, very useful. So receiving this email was like going through my PhD defense all over again. This is someone who knows what they're talking about and came in with like primary sources and like pictures.
There's some photos, of like
there's
old screen. God, I don't even know what it's called. Like a
cell. I don't know. Hang on. So this was to do with the rack focus that Kamel mentioned on one of the episodes. Basically, we also were corrected here. So it isn't a particularly modern technique and is widely used at the time. You basically, so they've sent us these pictures, which maybe we'll include in the podcast description if we can do that, of one of these rack-focused cell kind of machines where you have the camera at the top taking a picture of multiple animation cells that you can bring in and out of focus. Really cool, like really old-fashioned animation equipment. But yes. So thank you very much to Tact for sending us this very well-researched and helpful email. Anyone else?
Really appreciate it. There was a lot of work that went into these emails, and they really caught us by surprise, and I think made everybody's day. So thank you very much.
I would buy one of these cell, the rack focus machines.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Yeah.
It looks a little like a torture device.
They do look like a guillotine. Like it's I guess it's kind of the same function as a guillotine, just sort of slower and more precise.
I can't really think of any other differences.
Yeah. But
that's great. They recommend 1979's The Rose of Versailles as like a really great example of that rack focus technique. It's cool.
Yeah. So super, super helpful. And we were also directed to the blog of the lead producer as a result of this exchange. So if anyone else wants to send in corrections or comments to the podcast, it'd be great if you were as polite and respectful as this other person was, rather than just telling us that we're wrong about things. So thank you, Tact. And
the email, if you do want to send something in, is intheskiesoflove@gmail.com.
Yeah. Great. Fan mail out of the way. Should we talk episode 8?
So episode 8 opens with something I've wanted from the show for a long time, which is a history of the Empire. Like a Ken Burns documentary style, PowerPoint slides, fading in between each other. That was great. I really needed and wanted that.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that you're appreciating the narrator more with these sort of kind of historical dives?
Yes. I think that is his purpose. I don't know. You could have shown it in scenes, I guess, and like. I guess just it's not my style to use a narrator ever in writing. So, but it totally works in this scene. I think it's pretty great. I when they show what's the first Imperial's name? Rudolph?
Yeah, Rudolph, yeah.
when they show his scene of him being like inaugurated as the first emperor, or what
Kaiser, yeah.
Kaiser, okay. I couldn't help but think back to the 1999 classic, episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Of course.
And how
Yeah.
how Chancellor Palpatine, rose up through the Republic and managed to have a coup of his own and take over and convert it into the Empire.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's very interesting as well that although this has never happened in reality, that both of these kind of artistic works have reflected this same, I don't know, Jungian truth underlying all of politics.
Yeah, I mean, I find it quite scary because, as we all know, science fiction is a really good predictor of future technologies and these sorts of things. So it's quite scary when separate science fiction writers write this kind of scene and you think, this could happen to us at some point.
So true.
I'm going to take everything you said at face value and assume you're not being sarcastic. It would make me feel bad if I knew. The other thing they show in the little flashback is the start of the Free Planetary Alliance.
Yeah.
Which is really cool to see because it flipped my initial assumption of the show, which was that the Free Planetary Alliance came first.
Right, yeah.
And the Imperials broke off of them.
I think that was a confusion we had in the first episode, right? Because it says that the space date and the Imperial date is much younger than the the official space date.
Because
and I think this is
the old date,
exactly. Yeah. So they return back to the old kind of calendar. So I understand now why we were confused about that in the first episode.
Yeah, but it's great. It's cool to see that there's so much below the iceberg of like the current story that we're seeing, and there's hundreds of years of history going back before our time with Yang Wen-li and Sloan Graham. I really like that.
Yeah, I think I commented in my notes about like there's a bit when like the Free Planets Alliance breaks away and then there's hundreds of years or like 150 years or something between and they describe it as like first contact, as if it's like two groups of aliens meeting each other, like this enormous depth of time that these two civilizations have been kind of going their own way. It does kind of contextualize a lot of the things that you see. I think both of these episodes are very strong on the sort of historical side of things, like a lot about how the past affects the present and things that don't get forgotten or things that sort of stay in the background the whole time. I think particularly episode 9, there's like the ending scene of episode 9, which we'll get to, is very like interested in this.
Yeah.
So after the little flashback history lesson, we cut back to right after Isolone Fortress has been taken over, and the Imperials being informed of that fact, of their major loss. And it shows the building that the establishing shot of the building that they go to do that, and it's an octagon, which I can't help but feel is a direct reference to the Pentagon. It seems impossible that they would do that, but it's cool. It's got like it's really strange though, because when you look at the image of the octagon, that's what I'm going to call it that. From above, it looks like the Pentagon or whatever with more sides, but the facade of the building has the sort of the Greek or Roman like pillars that go all the way around the facades, and the internal courtyards that those sort of buildings have, if you know what I mean, where there's and then in the center of the octagon it sort of dips down like a cone, not
right, I see.
It like curves down into like a smaller octagon, I don't know, 50, 100 stories down. Really, I don't understand that at all. I'm very curious if that's just an artist or a painter going, man, this would look cool, or
right, like is there some
because there seems to be lots of either highways or runways that go towards where the octagon is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of greenery, a lot of green space.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting architecturally why it's like, it kind of seems like if I asked Stable Diffusion to give me the Pentagon with more sides and then make it look like a Roman cathedral or something, and what it would output.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It does have like an uncanny quality to it. Like, it was only up on screen for a few seconds. But yeah, this, like, I also think Thomas sent a picture.
I think that might be a picture of it. So I had to look up because I don't remember.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I have a picture up now. Yeah, it does literally just, it does look like the Pentagon. It looks exactly like the Pentagon, but with a different number of sides, obviously. And yeah, it does just like sink into the ground. Like, the central area is like a hole. Or at least that's how it looks from like the perspective that you see. It is very cool. It is very fascist in its kind of presentation. It kind of reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of like what Hitler's plans were for Berlin, like what he wanted Berlin to look like as like the capital of his empire. These like mock-ups are completely insane. And also I think Legends of Galactic Heroes continually references these mock-ups like all the way through. So we'll probably come back to them in the future. I think it's kind of like the Nero thing as well, right? Like rebuilding Rome in stone after the fire of Rome, as a sort of, a very peculiar building, the Octagon.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand all of these sort of like design choices and logic of everything except the sort of void cone in the middle.
Right, yeah. Is it for launching stuff? Is it for...
Yeah, that's sort of what it implies to me, but why you wouldn't launch something from there, would you? Like...
Right, from the middle of your like central command. Yeah.
I'm on the wiki. It doesn't really give much information. It's called the Ministry of War building, or the Imperial Ministry of Military Affairs.
Okay, so it is the Pentagon.
Yeah, I guess so. The seat of the Galactic Empire's War Ministry on the planet Odin.
I mean, it is literally the Pentagon. Like, if you look at images of the Pentagon, it has the same like cutaway sections in the center, right? Like,
they're sort of inverted, right? In the Pentagon, it's a series of buildings.
Right. Yeah.
This is like one building with cutouts for courtyards.
For lighting or for courtyards. Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually a bunch of sketches of it here as well, which are quite cool. Which I'll send you guys this later.
Okay. That's also if we can link them in the podcast description.
Man, the Octagon looks cooler
than the Pentagon, than the real life Pentagon. Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to in the anime. They don't have to like, to have space for car parks and spaghetti highways and stuff like that.
I mean, they do have like an enormous space for a car park in this picture. I don't know if like on the right side of the image, there is just like a colossal car park.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Again, it kind of reminds me of when we were talking about the architecture of the FPA, like central Senate building, where it's just set in the middle of nowhere, right? Like these places of power are just like in these deserts, basically, with nothing around them. So we're in the Octagon. We're meeting the 3 kind of chiefs of staff of the military, whose names I cannot remember. I don't think it's very important. And they are discussing basically whose fault it is. And I think even at that point, they're all discussing the fact that they will have to resign. So that's kind of where we set up the stakes for the episode.
Yeah, this is the very West Wing thing to me. Is the there's been some problems. Someone has to decide to
Mm-hmm.
give in their letters of resignation.
Mm-hmm.
The president, or the Kaiser in this case, has to decide whether to accept. They're
Mm-hmm.
talking to advisors and stuff. Obviously, this show does not have the benefit of like an Aaron Sorkin script, which for me is a disappointment, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, that's the type of, I don't know, I really enjoy those kind of stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the show is better when it's doing this kind of stuff as opposed to the battles, which
Yeah.
are not.
Right.
Maybe if you got Studio Trigger to do the battles, then I'd be more interested. But
Yeah.
they're fine. They look cool as paintings, just not very absorbing as, I don't know.
Yeah. I do agree. I think going back to something I think we said in like episode 2, whatever, the battles will, I think, be more interesting when we know the stakes or the ideologies of the characters who are actually in the battles. And basically, I think these political scenes taking place in like the halls of government and the battles effectively serve the same purpose. Like they're just discussions on how power should operate or how a state should operate. And in the case of, this section, like to me, these 2 episodes to get taken together are about image and accountability. Like, in particular, like in monarchies or in empires, you have to maintain face all the time. And so these 3 people are basically saying, we will take accountability for this mistake. And then the discussion is, can the state be upheld without these people taking accountability for what's happened? And that this calculation is basically being made all the time in the halls of government. And we're just privy to this one incident. And you see this all the way to the present day in real life, right? Like, will this person, can we afford to let this person resign because of a mistake that's taken place? Or can the state take the injury?
What sort of vacuum do you create by having to let those people go, and what's going to come in to fill that? And they're quite, everybody seems afraid of Lowengram basically becoming more powerful because he's the only legitimate person who could fill these sorts of roles. None of them, they're all a bit afraid of his ambition. And so the conversation has to happen. Like, do you really need to resign? Do we really need to let these people go? Because we all know what's going to happen.
This question of mistakes and accountability and letters of resignation seems, when you say it happens in the current day, like it happens every 3.5 weeks with the Tory party. So it's very prescient.
I think the more kind of based on image your government is, or your kind of state project is, the more complicated these calculations get, right? Like if you think about like a very image focused government like China or these sorts of places, these sort of discussions become extremely complicated. And we're jumping ahead. We'll talk about it again at the end of the episode. But at the end, you have this kind of symbols of the old empire burning. And even the narrator says, like, this sort of struggle for power has been going on for so long, but most people don't know about it, right? Like all of these, this image of stability is projected by the empire, but it is like rotting on the inside. It is all an image. And therefore there are these discussions of who is going to resign and can we afford to let this person resign, and this kind of stuff is all based around image. It's not really based around justice or accountability.
I think it does come into even sharper focus in the next episode as well. But then in between on this one, we see the scene of Paul, is he von or is he Van? Paul von Oberstein, basically deserting the fleet. So we saw that at the end of the last episode, right, where he is continually being not listened to, and is being extremely patient, but obviously getting frustrated as his admiral just leads the whole fleet into danger and then basically sacrifices all of them, and he deserts just in time when he's given that moment to just leave, and he takes that on face value and gets in a ship and literally leaves and flies back to the Empire. And we see how much of a gamble that was, the position that he's put himself in, and he knows that the position that he's put himself in, that he's either he's banking on being able to convince Lowengram to protect him, even though they don't know each other. Otherwise, he's going to get court-martialed and face the consequences of that court-martialing.
Which would it be death, or would it be prison for life? Or
I'm not sure. I don't think they mention it in the show, or mention it in this episode. So yeah, I'm not sure what the consequences would be. I would think at the least imprisonment, but
yeah, I don't think they go into details on what his punishment is going to be. But yeah, he kind of makes this this whole scene when he comes into Lowengram's office, I think is great. I was surprised how much I enjoyed it, because the first time we watched the show, I remember feeling obviously very distrustful of Oberstein. That's like your primary kind of emotion as you watch this scene. But yeah, there's a lot going on, right? Like he comes in and he says, "Oh, it's not just the fact that that I deserted. It's also that I'm the only surviving person from this group of people who failed, and so they need to make an example of me. And so I'm basically in a desperate situation." And he takes this gamble on supporting Lowengram.
How much of a gamble is it? Is it that he already realizes that Lowengram has that same? They're like aligned politically. Like, is he intuiting that, or is he just gambling that this is a rising star in the force? I can put this idea in his head. I'm saying we understand from the show that they're politically aligned because we see it, but I'm saying from Oberstein's perspective.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because he walks in and he says some extremely bold things. You get there are other moments in this episode where the other admirals are talking about how there's rumors already circulating about Lowengram's ambitions, and even about potentially overthrowing the Kaiser and this sort of stuff that is mentioned. I think this comes up in episode 9 actually towards the end. So there are, I guess Oberstein has heard these rumors to some extent. But nevertheless, he walks in and he says some, openly treasonous things. To the point where he nearly gets arrested. But he does see this. I'm not really sure what it is. Like he recognizes a kind of integrity or like openness or something in Lowengram that makes him different to the old aristocrats, and kind of knows that if he acts the same way around him, that's how he has to be to win this favor and to be protected.
Yeah, I think Oberstein is one of the most complicated characters in the show and one of the most difficult to pin down what his actual motivations or feelings are in a specific situation.
He made his motivations quite explicit.
Yeah, but again, it's sort of like, it's never clear in the show how much of it is an act or how much of it is manipulative. I think he clearly takes a gamble on Lowengram. Like he clearly puts himself out there and aligns himself with Lowengram. But in terms of how earnestly does he believe in Lowengram's political project, I think that question is not clearly answered for a really long time. I think we can continue to talk about it and how we feel about it as the show goes forward. My interpretation of this moment was that he doesn't really believe in Lowengram's political project because, how could he? Lowengram hasn't made anything clear about what his project is, right? At this point, he is just a potential suitor for the throne or a potential claimant for the throne. All Oberstein wants is the destruction of a dynasty that he feels is unjust or unfair. And he's
I'm not even sure if that's clear. He seems quite earnest and passionate when he comes into the room and delivers the speech. But it's also kind of like he walks in, he knows that Lowengram has already made enemies and has enemies in these old aristocrats and he's different. And so he just walks in and says, I hate those other guys so much. You wouldn't believe it. which is kind of what you do if you wanted to prove your, try and be loyal to this new person. Say,
or if you wanted to not get killed, right? Those guys who want to kill me, I hate them so much. I know that you hate them too, so maybe we could team up.
Yeah. So how much of that is put on or not? But yeah, most of the time he's very difficult to read. Like his expression, his tone of voice are very, like monotone, very controlled.
Even like the other two in that room.
Yeah. Even the way that he, sees the world with these like cybernetic eyes, these like, it's not even that you can't even read that. You can't read anything in his eyes because they're not real eyes, which I think is part of the design of the character or the theming there.
I mean, you could say real lies, which I think really speaks to his character.
So true.
One thing I thought was good in that scene, it went a different way than I thought it was, which is when Lowengram makes a big show of saying, Kirchheis, arrest this man. He is a traitor to the people. And then he comes into the room, takes out a gun, aims it at him. And then Oberstein's like, you wouldn't shoot me. And I was so sure he was going to like cock the gun and shoot him right there. Because the man is a sociopath and he definitely would. I did not get the sense he wouldn't shoot him.
I don't understand where you've got this idea from that Kirchheis is some sort of sociopath. I feel like you've clearly, or you've purely judged it from the animation, like the limited animation on his face.
It's an animated show, like what?
Yeah. But like, I never got the impression that he was like a sociopath.
It's the combination of his face and the vocal performance.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's not a very dynamic performance, yeah.
When he says, I don't think you would shoot me, and then it does a close-up of his finger on the trigger.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't tell if that shot was meant to imply, I'll definitely shoot you as soon as he says shoot.
Sure, yeah.
Or if it was saying, no, I can't actually. It wasn't clear to me if he was, squeezing the trigger or not. Anyway.
Yeah, I also thought the same thing, and I thought that was probably intentional. Like the audience is not really supposed to know. I was torn between, if Lowengram says no, shoot him, he would just shoot him. But also if Lowengram says nothing, he'd be, I don't know, unsure. I mean, he hasn't really got a lot to go on. Lowengram just says, this guy is treasonous. Shoot him. Or not shoot him, arrest him. But
I definitely think that if Lowengram had said shoot him at that moment, then Kirchheis would have done it. I don't have any question about that. But yeah, would he have done it under his own initiative? I think Kirchheis, when he's in the same room as Lowengram, doesn't take initiative often, right? Like a lot of it is offloaded onto his other half. So yeah, who knows? It's an interesting question.
Just to roll it back for a second, before this key, I think it maybe is the key scene of the episode. You do see the state minister informing the Kaiser about what's happened at Iceland Fortress, and he makes this point about saying imperial territory must be sacred and inviolable against foreign invaders.
Sure, yeah.
And then cuts right to Lowengram, making the point that like, well, are they foreign invaders or are they rebel forces in imperial borderlands?
Sure, yeah.
Which I think speaks to your question about like image and how they present these questions, because one implies, you can make either argument really. Because they haven't seen each other in 150 years, but they had a break. But also they were, if the Imperials, I assume, consider all of that imperial territory, and they were a rebel breakoff from the Imperials initially. So an interesting point I never thought about.
Yeah, I think this does come up repeatedly as well in the show of, when the Empire wants them to be foreign invaders, to commit war crimes, for example, they can do that when they want them to be rebels, who are just, they've been just deceived or whatever, then that's convenient. the truth is kept very ambiguous by those in power. So yeah, I also love that Lowengram is like sitting side saddle in his throne in that scene. Like he's got his legs crossed and he's like sitting off to the side, and he's like, these guys are just making shit up. There's not are they foreign invaders or are they rebels? You know, it's like business casual. Also, rolling back from the Oberstein or the end of the Oberstein discussion, I'd forgotten that this scene where Lowengram explicitly says that Kirkei is the same, like an extension of his body, you know, is in this episode. Which I remembered that line all the way to the end of the show. That is like I think it's quite key because it's one of the only times where you see them being vulnerable around other people with regards to their very special connection that they have between the two of them. Because Oberstein asks him to leave the room, and Lowengram is like, "Nope."
He's like,
what different?
Something, yeah.
Yeah, what difference would it make if I tell him now or you tell him now? Like,
Yeah, that's true. I think in all of the previous episodes, they don't really address this themselves. They know other people are talking about it, like these two men who are basically, they're best friends, and they have this like additional level of loyalty and this sort of, I don't know, almost like unfair advantage going on. As one of them rises, the other one will always get dragged up because they'll be supporting each other. But they never really address it explicitly. But Lowengram does do it in this one-on-one, one-on-one meeting.
I want to know what Kirkei was doing when he went into the other room. I couldn't stop thinking about that. I was like, he's like, I'm going to go and wait in the other room.
He definitely had a cup against his ear.
Yeah.
With the gun ready. Like.
Yeah, because he says Kirkei, so he just bursts into the room immediately. I thought it was a good scene also, like when he commits high treason and says, Oberstein commits high treason, says he hates the dynasty, hates the empire, he wants to see the whole thing burn down. And then Lowengram's like, I'm going to arrest you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to turn you in. And Oberstein already knows that he's not going to do that. That like this whole thing is like an act, right? Like, that he has to...
Or does he have to just double down at this point? You can't back out of this.
Yeah.
So you have to put all your chips in and say,
yeah.
That this is the only gambit you have.
Gosh. It's just going to be a consistent theme in this podcast that like pinning down whether Oberstein knows something is not always easy. I think you're right that like, in that situation, there's nothing else to do but double down.
Yeah, but he seems like you get the impression already knows because he seems so calm about the situation that he just says some things like he knows he's going to get out of it. But then at the same time, that's the only way he ever really appears on screen. As calm and collected, and I don't know,
extremely good poker player.
I think so.
Sure. Yeah.
He only has one set of cards to play.
Yeah.
I don't think it is possible for him to know for sure, but he has to. He's already admitted to treason, so he's got to go all the way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. What are you going to do in that situation? I just think that most people wouldn't be able to think that quickly, right? Like, a lot of other characters in the show would have panicked under those circumstances. So,
I assume he plotted it out beforehand.
Yeah.
I assume he thought it could go one of two ways, and if it goes this way, then I'll do this.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely the show's spokesperson for Machiavellianism, and I think that's clear from the get-go. And I think his arc remains interesting the whole way through. Because I don't think the show actually comes down on opinion on it doesn't come down any moral judgment on Machiavellianism itself. It just presents it as a reality of politics.
When we say Machiavellianism, is that So just explicitly, is that just like how do you describe that? What is it?
So it's kind of like maybe Machiavellianism is the wrong word for this, but it's kind of like maintaining power under any circumstances. So not having like a core ideological basis, but having power as a sort of mechanical, like a way of exerting control over the environment and doing anything you can to maintain that power. And like Machiavelli talks about the fact that like good rulers should still do this. Like if you're a good person, you should still be backstabbing, manipulative, all this sort of stuff, because the bad guys are going to do it too. And actually you can do more good by being this kind of sophist, right? Like we talked about before, and getting yourself into a position of power. Just focus on obtaining it and then do what you need to do. It's whereas like, Lonegram is, well, at this point in the story, he's not very ideological, but he's ideological. And most of the other characters are. Like Yang Wenli, for example, is deeply ideological. Like he has a position, and then there's not this obsession with just obtaining power.
He seems uninterested in it. He doesn't want to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Lonegram seems perfectly fine playing it.
Or he's grumpy about it, right? Like as we saw in episode 9, like he hates it. I
guess he accepts the nature of the thing.
Yeah.
Is this what game theory is?
I don't think it's explicitly what game theory is. Like with something like game theory, I mean, there's like stuff in game theory about good and bad actors, right? Like if you have a system of good actors, then a single bad actor can benefit enormously. But if you have too many bad actors, then the system doesn't work. So systems over time will balance out the number of good actors and bad actors. That's like it's one conclusion of game theory, which is just a way, like game theory is just a way of analyzing these sorts of problems, like cost benefit analyses on like large scale or small scale. It's not unrelated, I guess.
I think I don't really know what game theory is.
I mean, it's you could apply it to many different types of system, I suppose. It doesn't have to be a sociological system. But I think in this, there is like, it is kind of connected to this, like what you just said, right? Like, everybody sort of is talking about Lohengram's position or his kind of like his ambition and what his feelings are and how different he is. And suddenly he's now introduced this new actor into his ecosystem of Oberstein. Like if they go through this whole scene, he eventually takes him on and he's like, yes, you're going to be one of my advisors. I'm going to use you. You're going to use me. And it's all it's all becoming a bit more complex. And now you have this new person who you don't really know, how they're going to act or what their end game is. So, is he a bad actor? Is he a good actor? Does Lohengram become the bad actor by saying, I'm just going to use Oberstein for my own politics? Or, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's quite a big decision for Lohengram to accept Oberstein, right? Because when the Kaiser asks for Lohengram's advice on whether or not to accept these letters of resignation, and presumably Lohengram would take one of those spots. In fact, he says so right at the end. He says,
which one do you
keeping
want?
you safe costed me one of those seats at the top of the pyramid. So obviously he thinks he's valuable to have alongside him. And then the top three, whatever you call them, the big three, they get to keep their jobs. I assume that presumably some punishment is laid at their feet because the Kaiser says, I'll leave the details up to the Minister of State. Just less severely. But they seem to, in a very beautiful, like sun pouring in through the curtains kind of room. I've never seen a shot like that in this anime before. They have a discussion about why would Lohengram do that? What is the advantage to him giving that up and giving us our seats back? And I think they catch on to the fact that he's brought Oberstein along with him. So there's something fishy there.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really seem to see the value in that, though, right? Like in that scene, they're sort of like, well, he's up to something, but like, what's so special about Oberstein that
we didn't see, apparently,
that we didn't see, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is like I don't know, it's very complicated, and maybe I'm just too stupid to understand what's going on. But like, for example, when Kirkiais is about to pull the trigger on Oberstein, like there is a moment where Kirkiais could have become morally compromised or become like Lohengram's enforcer, his gun for hire or his, but Oberstein very quickly becomes that by the end of the episode. So all of that dirty work is like offloaded onto Oberstein at the end of the episode. There's even a conversation where they're like drinking the wine that was supposed to be for Kirkiais, but he was too busy with work. And Lohengram says, we're going to have to kill people. We're going to have to like lie. We're going to have to cheat, all this kind of stuff. That's what I want you to do. That's your job now. So it almost absolves Kirkiais of the responsibility of taking on that dirty work and provides Lohengram with a person who is willing to do that and who's able to do that.
So in a way, he's doing this for Kirkiais.
I think like you could interpret it that way, right? Like I don't think it was my first interpretation when I watched the show through like the first time, but definitely like on revisiting it, it's like he's keeping Kirkiais innocent by bringing on this person as it's a happy side effect, but it's definitely seems like a motivation, and they are mirrored.
Prior to that happening, he does promote Kirkiais, right? To commanding his own set of ships.
Yeah.
Just one thought: the scene with the three admirals, the big three, when they're in that room, and we don't really get a sense of the time of day in any of the other scenes.
Yeah,
they're all interior shots, except for this final shot with the three of them, where you can see through the windows that the sun is setting on them.
Yeah,
that's art director brain right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't get that till right now, but
no, I think you're completely right. Yeah.
This kind of theming extends over the next episode as well. So maybe it's very clever.
The characters even draw attention to it.
Yeah, right.
They even draw attention to it in the next episode. Sorry, go on. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it when we get to it. But yeah.
I think this like side effects thing, the show or the writers of the show are really good at this sort of thing, like the knock-on effects of doing things and like who intended for these to happen and which ones were like happy coincidences and things. Like taking on Oberstein sort of protects Kirkiais' innocence, and then the scene where Lohengram has to go and talk to the Kaiser and say, please don't remove these admirals from their position. It wouldn't be, right for me to have their place or whatever. And then the Kaiser has to listen to him because it would, everybody kind of wants to keep these guys in those positions anyway. They sort of expect Lohengram to try and take one of the positions. He has like 2 excuses for not taking it now, which allow him to remain very ambiguous in everybody's eyes, which is useful because he needs people to not really know too much about his ambitions. So they think, is it because he's trying to just suck up to the Kaiser and give the Kaiser what he wants? Or maybe suck up to us, like try and buy some favor with the high-level aristocrats by sort of protecting their jobs for them? Or has he just done it because he wants Oberstein and there's no other no other way for him to get Oberstein without offering these admirals their jobs back? It's all like no one can work
once, right?
Us is thinking, and it's not clear which ones are intentional and which ones are side effects, which I think is very feels very realistic.
It seemed like there was a 1-to-1 cost for the seat and for Oberstein. Like he had to pay for that.
But there's also a few comments that like he makes where he says it's not really like those seats aren't really worth that much to me anyway. Like everybody thinks that they are, like it would be me rising up, but these people are going to fall again at some point anyway. They're all like incompetent. So whether I get it now or whether I just shoot straight past them in the future, it's not too much of a big deal for me.
He calls it like a stopping point, right? Like these positions would just be a stopping point on my way up. So like, yeah, like I said, yeah, like what Tom was saying, I think like he doesn't really see them as that valuable, like these positions. So yeah, there's a cost, but it doesn't really cost him anything. But everyone believes that it's cost him something. So even like the Secretary of State is like, oh, he's been so humble, something I wouldn't expect from someone so young, this kind of stuff. Not quite playing the game at the same level that Lowengram is at that point in the story.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. There's like a point they make in West Wing a couple times where when a character offers, someone else who's been running for the presidency, they offer them the vice president spot, and the guy never wants to accept it because he's like, well, that's it for me. That's I'll never make it to the presidency if you give me that. Which I mean also isn't true because Biden is president. And he was vice president before. Wasn't H.W. Bush also vice president for Reagan or someone like that, and then he became president?
Possibly.
So I don't think that bears truth in reality.
I guess it kind of shoehorns you into a role for a certain number of years, right? Like you're unlikely to get the presidency for another 10 years in that position.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This episode ends on a flashback to Lowengram and Kierkegaard's, I guess, academy days.
Is that in this episode?
Mm-hmm. That's the final sort of scene.
Yes, I remember now, yeah.
Lowengram wants to go visit his sister, I guess, in a while. And as they're running off, they see a man attacking a woman or assaulting her. And then Lowengram like bunks him on the head and then runs off.
Yeah.
I thought that scene was a bit strange because like he left the guy with her.
I mean, it looked like he was pretty knocked out.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. I guess also they didn't want to get spotted, right? Yeah. That would have meant death for both of them. Yeah. I think the scene is just supposed to highlight the depravity of the nobles and, right, like, which Lowengram talks about when they're sitting on the hill, and how corrupt the whole system has become. Yeah.
And it presents Lowengram's like ideological stance. Like,
yes, yeah.
He does want power. He does want, I mean, this is why they talk about the history of Rudolph in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it sets up this scene which says, I can be the next Rudolph.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'll do it right this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, there's loads of things to talk about with this scene, but I really love the writing of Lowengram's statements. Like, they could have delivered this in any way, but he delivers it like he's like Ursula Le Guin or something. He's like, Rudolph, like we think of it as being eternal, like being immortal, but it's only been 500 years. Just like there was no reason for mankind to exist, there's no reason for the Lowengram, for the Goldenbaum dynasty to exist. These things are just incidental. Yeah. I thought it's very it sums up his position quite well, I think, and quite neatly.
Is Ursula Le Guin the one who said the thing about the divine right of kings?
Yeah, right. Yeah. That we might think capitalism is inevitable, but so did everyone. Everyone thought the same thing about the divine right of kings. Yeah.
Yeah. This scene is the gayest scene in the show.
It is incredibly gay.
They get like nose to nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. It does look like they're about to kiss.
Yeah.
Maybe they should have done.
Maybe they should have done together under the stars.
Yeah, I think
they shake hands and then hold hands in the shaking hands position.
Yeah,
this is how men hold hands.
Yeah,
while they look to the stars.
Yeah,
the skies of love, if you will.
Also, is it this episode? No, it's not the next episode. We'll talk about it. This scene is great because it's a flashback. They've put the like fuzzy boundary around the edge of the, around the around the outside of the frame, to like be like, oh, it's a memory or whatever, But to me, it just looks like, the Yowie filter. Like they've just like, they've made it all like blurry, to highlight the romance between the two characters. It's a good scene.
Well, our memories are always more romantic than reality.
That's true. Yeah.
Whose memory is it? Is it Lohengram's memory or is it Reinhardt Kirkjai's?
I think it's Kirkjai's memory, right? Because he's like walking home when he recalls.
And at the end, he says that the stars are the same as they were that day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
I think it's a very good and powerful scene where, when he stands up and he's like, "Don't you think I could be Kaiser?" And then Kirkjais is like, "Maybe if it's you, right? Like, I don't believe that anyone could be Kaiser, but like, I believe that this person could be Kaiser." And I think it really does. Yeah. It's weird that the show took this long to give us a reason for Kirkjais' sort of, I don't know, what he actually believes. But yeah.
He believes in Lohengram, right? I don't think
sure.
he believes in anything else besides that.
No.
Not strongly.
No, yeah. I would struggle to pin down Kirkjais' political position at all, right? Like, I think he is wholly dedicated to this one
is
person.
probably like plays into the, like, he's difficult to read. He seems a bit like a sociopath. I don't know what's going on because he's very unclear like what he stands for, and he's so smart. He's so capable. Like he does everything effortlessly. He has this moral compass where he stops Lohengram doing like certain things, or like warns him against certain acts, and tries to guide him in this way as an advisor, but never really tells him explicitly what to do. But at the same time, you don't really know what he wants, like what he's aiming for. He's just basically completely enthralled by Lohengram and his personality, and he just really wants to be along for the ride and see him, I don't know, like achieve really anything that Lohengram wants.
But I think it's like, it's not just that he wants to be along for the ride. Like we see in episode 9, there's like a genuine love between them, right? It's not like it's not purely like a political kind of coattail riding.
You're right. Yeah. This is why it's hard to see this relationship as anything other than like very romantic, I guess. Because they don't necessarily seem aligned in terms of the end goal of what they want. Kirkjais doesn't seem like he really cares that much about this whole taking over the universe thing, but he really just loves Lohengram and wants him to see him do things.
He just loves to watch him work,
I was wrong. The episode doesn't end with that flashback.
Oh, okay.
It ends with the Kaiser cutting flowers.
Oh my god, yeah.
I thought that's the end of episode.
That's episode 8, yeah. That's
is it? Oh, I thought that was episode 9. Okay, I've got them mixed up. That's a really good ending too.
That's such a good ending. I gained so much respect for the Kaiser in that one scene, because you're always like, oh, he's just like a bumbling idiot or whatever. But you're like, this is like an aesthete, this is a person who values beauty above everything else, who's just like forced to be the Kaiser. He doesn't really want to be. And like, it's like being forced into political position is one of the most cushy prisons possible, but it is still a prison, right? Like, and he is still in that position where he's not comfortable with the role he's playing. And he just wants to watch the world burn in the most magnificent way possible, right? Like, what was it he says?
He's like, if the Golden Baum dynasty or whatever, something like this, has to collapse or be destroyed or ended, then it should be ended in the most beautiful or magnificent way possible or something.
Yeah. Huge respect. Huge respect. Yeah.
In that scene when the state minister is like bowing before him, and he's like, I'm a little worried. He was like, oh, worried about Lohengram? Yeah, he might. Oh, you mean he might try and commit treason against me? Yeah, I mean, I'm quite worried about that. I mean, let him do it. I mean, whatever. If he wants to do it, let him try. I mean, dare I say it? It sounded a bit like Yang Wen-li of him to
Yeah,
be so,
right.
Yeah.
But I think yeah. I mean, I don't think they're too dissimilar in the sense that one of Yang Wenli's main motivations is like the love of beauty, right? Like he talks about good tea and, a good life and all this kind of stuff before he's interested in anything else. And I think the Kaiser is just less competent, right? But has the same values.
I don't know if I got the sense that he's less competent or a bumbling idiot as much as he just doesn't seem to care.
Yeah,
about,
sure. Yeah.
Any sort of he doesn't want to direct his mental faculties towards these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which we find out is true in the next episode.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'd forgotten about that scene, and we don't really see a lot of the Kaiser throughout the show, so he doesn't even get a lot of lines really. And
it made me want to know more about him, but we don't see too much of him.
It does. Speaking of not seeing the Kaiser, that does lead us directly into episode 9.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, we have to read the summary, don't we? We haven't read the.
Yeah. Remember to keep all the typos in.
Episode 9, the Klopstock incident. 30 years ago, Marquis Klopstock was exiled from the imperial court. He asks Prince Otto von Braunschweig, the emperor's son-in-law, to ask forgiveness on his behalf. Braunschweig invites him to his daughter's birthday party. Klopstock's real goal is to bring a bomb in order to kill the emperor, who will be there. At the party, Reinhard von Lohengrin clashes with Baron Flegel. The bomb is taken away by accident and makes little damage. Klopstock commits suicide and all the incident is kept secret. Is this Google translated?
I don't think so. Yeah, just in case anyone who edits the Wikipedia is listening, you're doing God's work. We value it, but yeah. I mean,
I didn't mean to be derisive.
No. We could edit them if we wanted to. I'm pretty sure. But no, they have a kind of charm to them. So,
do you think?
I just want to get this out. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, you're going to say. I'm going to see if you say the same thing. Almost certainly not. Go for it.
I was going to say the Klopstock incident, or whatever. A clock stops. A clock stops.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. Is it supposed to be like clock stop?
There's a scene where a clock explodes.
And he constantly checking the time, right, to see when the thing is going to, when the clock will stop and kill the emperor or the Kaiser. Yeah. That's the aim.
But the guy's name is Klopstock.
Yeah. Which that's why I was looking up.
I feel right now for not getting that comic book-esque writing right there.
It is like comic book writing.
But I think it is a German name as well, so I wasn't quite.
Yeah, sure.
It seems too much of a coincidence.
But I think if you were a Japanese writer, this wouldn't seem as funny, right? Like because like a clock stopping, you would write that in Japanese. You wouldn't like.
Yeah.
The phrase "the clock stopped" would never show up in your writing.
Yeah. But then
that's like a time-themed Batman villain, like
Dr. Klopstock. You've fallen into my trap, my cane trap, Batman.
Time is still ticking. For now.
Tick tock, tick tock.
It also made me think of the Number Wang sketch, Stoppen Sie Klocken. I couldn't get that out of my head the whole way through. Great episode, though. Yeah.
As is this one. I love this episode. This is my favorite episode of the whole show. Truly it was, because it felt like a contained story. Like very contained. I don't know, it just really... Which isn't to say I wouldn't change things about it. I would. But I really like this one. It opens with another history lesson. The history of how the Kaiser came to power. Which is he was never meant to.
Yes. Which kind of matches his character, right? Like matches what we see from him. that he was a debauched drunkard in his youth. And then he was forced to ascend the throne because of his, again, Machiavellian brothers who couldn't actually wait for the throne. They had to try and kill their father. Classic.
Well, they didn't, did they? Like,
they were framed, right?
Yeah, the elder brother was said he was going to kill the emperor, and so the Kaiser, and so he got killed. And then they found out the younger brother falsely accused him.
Yeah.
So no one tried to kill the dad. The dad just killed all his sons.
Yeah. Well, if you've ever played Crusader Kings 2, it's sometimes it has to happen.
When it does happen, you get an achievement called the Klopstock incident.
No, sadly not.
What do we think of the general plot?
The plot.
The Klopstock plot.
Oh, you mean like the conspiracy, not like the plot of the show?
Not the plot of the show, yeah.
It felt like a mission story from a Hitman level.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The birthday party. Yeah.
I know the perfect place to put this bomb and how I'm going to disguise it, and it just gets carried away.
Yeah, like and you're just walking away, and you're like the perfect crime, and then one of the staff members just carries the cane away. The actual plan to assassinate the Kaiser is a very bad one. Like, it is extremely bad. Like, he puts a bomb in a cane, and then he just leaves the cane on the bench in the hopes that the Kaiser will like sit on the bench or be near the bench when the bomb goes off.
Yeah.
And won't be, I don't know, in the bathroom or in a different room or anywhere in the garden. Like, it's a terrible plan. But the guy who makes the plan seems somewhat, I don't know, he's not really thinking clearly throughout the whole episode. So it's,
it's a desperate plan from a man in complete despair, I guess. So it sort of fits. It's like quite a sad story from his point of view, I guess.
It is a sad story, but then again, like, you see him in his big house, living his comfortable life with his servants. He is the one who has hung on to that bitterness, right? Like the rest of the court has like moved on, and he could have accepted it, but he spent the last 30 years roiling in his own bitterness.
Yeah.
He got radicalized.
Yeah, right. He went on some forums. I don't know. He was, fell down the rabbit hole.
He didn't even need that, did he? Like, he was isolated for 30 years.
Yeah.
Just, stewing in his own anger.
Mm.
And he seemed like a big believer in the national project of Rudolph's, and saw the current royal family as a real, stain on that royal tapestry. And just decided, I'm gonna make things right.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the thing we were saying about image before, right? Like that, there is almost nothing material. There's no materialist argument you can make for why he would want to kill the Kaiser. He believes in the Golden Dawn dynasty. He believes in the state project. He believes in the empire. All of these things would naturally lead a person to not want to kill the Kaiser of the empire. But this idea about degeneracy or like, corruption creeping in, and the image then of this new ruler. It's like an aesthetic argument, right? Like, it's not a political one.
It's the image of an old ruler that gets him into the party in the first place, right? It's a
sure.
gift of the painting of Rudolph.
Yeah.
I'm so on top of my segues today.
What's great is when you point them out. That's
and derail everything by doing so. But this one was a great segue. I like this breakaway, like meta textual.
Yeah.
It is a painting of Rudolph, right?
That he offers
to the son-in-law who is married to a daughter of the Kaiser.
Yes, or a niece of the Kaiser. I can't remember what the relationship is. Yeah,
but not a daughter of Anne Rose, right?
No, I don't think so. No. I don't think they have any children, right?
No.
But Prince Braunschweig this guy's a real dick. Like,
I don't care for him.
I didn't care for him at all. Like, he seems like a jerk from day one, and then he doesn't. There's no redeeming features really the whole way through the show.
His son seems way worse.
Yeah. Oh
somehow.
Yeah. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, going all over the place. But so let's talk about him when we get to it. Let's start with
you do see the son right after the Klopstock. What's his name?
Klopstock. Yeah.
Klopstock. When he gives him the painting and leaves.
Yeah.
His son talks to
Flegel.
Yeah. He talks to his dad and is like, aren't you the one who actually made him feel ostracized?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
he's like Lamau. Yes.
Yeah. Like it doesn't seem like the Kaiser cares one way or the other if he's ostracized or not. Like
no.
So yeah.
Yeah. The Kaiser literally doesn't care. I mean, he doesn't even bother to show up to the party. He doesn't. I don't think he mentions Klopstock at any point throughout the story. This is the affairs of minor nobles.
So does he not show up to the party because he's actually sick? Because in the opening scene, doesn't he say, well, it is my brother-in-law, it is my granddaughter's birthday or something, so I should, let me go. I want to go.
Yeah, I don't think, like, the show never answers this question, right? But I don't think he's actually sick. Someone says that maybe he's drunk too much. Like, Countess, whatever her name is. Baroness.
I can't remember.
Yeah. We'll talk about her in a moment as well, because she is the life and soul of the party, and also finds ways to interrupt every scene and derail whatever's going on, which I think is completely intentional. But yes, so was he actually sick? Did he drink too much? Or did because the state secretary basically advises him not to go, right? Like, because you've been to too many of Prince Braunschweig's parties and you haven't been to enough of this other guy. And the Kaiser's like, oh, for God's sake, like, now I want to go. Yeah. So I don't know, could be anything.
No, it's interesting. Great cars. They all
great
drive
cars.
Great cars, really nicely designed.
Yeah.
And then we get to Lohengrin in this episode, and your favorite memeable moment
when he's like sulking, like a toddler or something. Like he's like looking off to the side, like sulking. He's like, "No, I don't want to go." And Kirky Ice is like, "Come on, don't be difficult. Like, like it's gonna be fine. Once you're there, you'll enjoy it." No.
I won't even know anyone there.
Yeah.
I have to go, I guess. Fine, I'll go. But you're going to come with me, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'll go with you.
I'll wait in the car for you.
Like a puppy.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand why. So I guess Lohengrin was the only one invited, not Kirky Ice.
Well, Kirky Ice is just like his servant, technically, right? Like, although Kirky Ice is like an admiral or whatever, he's not a noble, as we learned in the original flashback episode. So
yeah, great. He does dress kind of strange this episode. He dresses like a Shakespearean pirate or something. I don't quite know how to describe it.
I love everyone's drip in this episode. Like, and like there's I think it's this episode where the Kaiser is like wearing this green jacket with like tree vines going down either side of the jacket, and you're like, God, that's such a cool jacket. Like, yeah.
I mean, all the nobles look like they're about to get beheaded by the French. Like, people.
Yeah. The house, like the design of the house, is very good as well. I've worked on designs, like the like noble's house. It reminds me of Clifton House in Berkshire. It's like this beautiful old, manor house, amazing. And on designs, I love the 1980s Imperial laptop.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
It is so good. It is so good. like Kirky Ice on this like brick laptop with the like filigree, going up the sides. Oh, so good.
It's not just the laptop though, is it? He's got the little like PDA, the like.
Yeah.
Used to be like a Nokia like 20 years ago. That was a phone, but you could open it up like a laptop on the inside with its own miniature keyboard, and that's what it. It seems strange that he opened that up just to look at the big clock.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, it's just for our purposes. But surely he would have a tiny clock on his weird laptop. He opened a separate screen just for the clock.
Oh god, the bulky 1980s laptop is so good. I adore it. Yeah,
great. You should be able to buy that as a decal design for your laptop.
Yeah, Isilon Fortress should get on it. Okay, so the party starts. Well, the party starts. People turn up. These are the painting. Party starts.
Lone Graham explodes in the car park, where he opens the door and he nearly collides with Klopstock.
Oh yeah,
and he's like, "I'm so sorry. That was rude of me." And it's like, who is this old guy? Why won't he talk back to me? Because he's got a bomb in his cane. Right.
Because obviously Klopstock had his plot, the Klopstock plot. But I thought that interaction was quite weird. Like, he like opens the car door and he bangs into Klopstock. Is it because he's got a bomb in his cane? Is that why he's like so?
I think that's why he's like why Klopstock doesn't say anything, and he's like, yeah, because he's he's on his mission to plant his bomb, and then suddenly this guy basically collides with him while he's got the cane in his hand. I assume that's why he reacts so strange. But it gives an opportunity, I guess, for the Baroness to turn up, and then they to ask, "Who's this guy?" And we get we already know as the audience, but I guess it explains it to Lone Graham. And then, this is jumping forwards a little bit, but then Lone Graham goes in, and then he's looking at the painting, and the guy, what's his name, Flegel comes along and starts being just being really unpleasant to him, and then Lone Graham delivers this thing about Klopstock as like he's known this family for ages, and he knows the whole history. And it's like, well, they used to be a powerful family too, and blah 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 blah. And it's like literally just didn't know who they were in the car park.
Right, I thought Kirky Ice has filled him in.
Yeah. It was pretty funny. Patching through the notes from the Imperial computer.
That line is so cold, though, right? When he's like, "Oh, this guy, it's so pathetic. Like, he gave us this painting," and then Lone Graham's just like, "Well, times change. Maybe your family will be the one giving up the painting in a few years."
Yeah.
Such a shame it would be.
Yeah. And then he says a thing about ill-bred dogs deserve a kicking every so often, which is just obviously Lone Graham has these moments, like when he almost stones that guy to death, or like when he attacks that kid in the classroom. I can't remember what he does. Like he kicks him or slaps him. That's right. Yeah, he has these outbursts, especially when Kirky Ice is not around. It's like as soon as Kirky Ice is not in the room, his filter is off, and he just becomes this horrible, just brat, basically, just being spicy for the sake of it.
A lot of people seem to think that they can kind of intimidate him physically or intimidate him by their sort of aggressive language, and sometimes I feel lulled into the sense that he would this is a weakness for him. Because you don't see him spark too often about this sort of stuff. He's usually, he's the general on the ship directing people. He's not really in harm's way, but he's completely unafraid of this sort of altercation or physical fighting and things and this moment where this person turns up and is just being a real dick to him, and then he just and then he's just he's just so insulting and aggressive back that I was reminded that, like you say, he has this temper in him, and he's not afraid of. If that came down to a fight, I don't think he would hesitate either to have got involved.
It doesn't seem like with Lone Graham you can't intimidate him, you can't overpower him, you can't beat him in a in a battle of wits or words, which I think maybe makes Yang Wenli such a perfect foil for him because he doesn't do any of that. He just doesn't care. He's like, cool, man, whatever you want to do. He brings a real Matthew McConaughey energy to any sort of conflict it's like it bounces off of him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I thought it was funny, like when Flegel is like, "You've made an enemy today," like you've made a mistake, insulting me or whatever, and then he turns around, and he's like, "Cool, see you later, I guess. Make sure you do it yourself."
Yeah.
Deeply good.
They're sort of interrupted, right, by Flegel's dad announcing that the Kaiser is on his way. And then he says everyone should welcome him for his arrival. But I was a little confused because then it cuts to the crowd going, we should go. And then the whole crowd starts leaving.
Right, yeah.
I thought, they don't want to see the Kaiser? They're leaving the party now? I was a bit confused by how they
Maybe your subtitles were different, because I think in my one he says, we need to make preparations for his arrival. So I think everyone's, leaving the room so that they can prepare an entryway. But yeah, then he never shows up.
How embarrassing for him.
Yeah.
Cut in the Baroness.
Baroness. Who is this person? She just appears. Yeah. And I don't know if she ever comes up again in the show. And she's just there to basically
ramp up
just
the drama.
Gossip.
Yeah.
And ramp up drama. Say a bunch of outrageous things, and then she just disappears again. I wish she'd been in the show more.
Yeah, I thought
she turns up.
Did she not show up again?
Maybe she shows up late in one more episode, but she's not a recurring character.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, because she turns up as well. She's like, "Kirky Ice, why didn't you come visit me the other day?" And Kirky Ice is like, Yeah.
I thought they were really introducing a wedge into turning it into a love triangle. I thought that was the implication of her showing up constantly.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but no, I don't know if she ever appears again. If she does, I think we will definitely draw attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she's literally just there for exposition to tell you about Klopstock.
But such spicy exposition, yeah. She's really, she's laying it on thick with the oh, did I do a treason? She comes over and she's like, "Oh, I think you probably drank too much. Oops, did I say that?"
I think it's yeah, she does do this. I think she also serves a role as another element of the aristocracy that you don't see in anyone else in this episode. You see the corruption, you see the people who are against the corruption. We've seen the Kaiser and how he just doesn't care anymore. And then we have this Baroness she also completely understands the level of kind of corruption and sees everything as kind of a joke, the I don't know, depravity of the whole thing. But also she knows she's completely a part of it and she doesn't want it to be really changed either. But she has a sort of sense of humor about the whole thing, which I don't know. I don't think any of the other characters have really come in with that sense of humor about the whole ridiculousness of situation. Not that she really says very much, but just her general attitude. Even after the bomb explodes and she just wanders over hey, I think I deserve some attention too. And she's she doesn't even seem bothered by the explosion that's happened. She just stands around talking it's an everyday event.
I know a bomb went off, but what about me?
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about the bomb.
Yeah.
But what about
my
me?
birthday next week. That one's going to be even better than this party.
Yeah, she's great. She reminded me a bit of Nanami in Utena. It's a similar energy.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting ahead of ourselves. The bomb goes off, or the guy leaves the cane on the ground or on the bench. Klopstock leaves the cane on the bench, and then he goes off and he drives away. Which weird choice, weird choice, because would you not want to stay to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch? I know he doesn't want to be implicated or this kind of thing, but I just thought it was weird.
He was clearly incredibly confident that his plan was foolproof. So
which is
matter.
which is a surprise because the plan is very bad, as we've talked about.
I think there's something about, I was thinking about this as well, like, why wouldn't he be there? I was also thinking, the way that the episode ends, like, and he's so desperate, I kind of was a bit surprised he wouldn't just, like, try and to be there when the explosion went off and make sure that he takes down anyone he wants to take down, even with his own life ending. But I think that, like, the hurt pride that he has, like, this is all about revenge and about the bitterness, that, like, somehow being remote from that, back in his comfortable mansion while the explosion goes off, it would kind of, seems like a really powerful move, like way more of a powerful position than being on the scene, seeing it. Just like, these people are, like, now kind of beneath me. I'm far removed. They're being taken care of. This is my, like, me getting my kind of power and control back in the way that I used to operate. That's sort of what it made me think of.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
It doesn't work out like that, but and him looking at himself while this is all happening, the picture of himself.
Yeah, I mean, he like does this weird little prayer to the Kaiser when he gets home, right, to Rudolph. I don't think any of this is about Rudolph, obviously, right? Like, it's about him. It's about his revenge and his, and he dresses it up however he wants to dress it up, but it's like a personal vendetta that he has. And yeah, he's selfish and prideful and not very bright, clearly. Yeah.
I got the sense he genuinely believes he's doing it for the good of country and the good of the dynasty. I don't think, maybe he's lying to himself about it, but people who are radicalized in this way, like, don't understand the underlying reasons of how they got that way, but they think they're doing it for some larger thing, something beyond themselves.
I definitely think he's lying to himself. I don't think he's aware that he's doing that, right? Like, I do think that he, like, genuinely believes in the state project and in the Kaiser, like I said at the beginning. But the motivation or the anger, like, all of that emotional stuff, I think is a personal injury, right? Like, it's nothing to do with his ideology. Like, if he hadn't been slighted in the way that he was slighted, I don't think he would have carried out this bombing, right? Right? Like, yeah.
One thing about the bombing, prior to that, I thought there was a lazy decision by the writers, which was to draw out tension, to get Lohengrin closer to the cane. They had a woman just faint. Why she fainted? Who cares? Doesn't matter.
Right,
She just fainted in his arms, and so he has to find the nearest bench to put her on.
Yeah.
I just thought.
I agree. I don't see what the point of that was. I think that you could have just had the cane, like, it would have been absurd and maybe a bit too, like, modern to just had the cane removed from the room for, like, no reason. Like, some servant is just like, someone clean up this cane. Like, someone's left this cane, like, put it in another room. And you're like, all of this work and all of this, like, emotional energy that went into this bombing. And in the end, like, it was all just foiled by some random, like a housekeeper. I don't see why Lohengrin had to be involved in that at all. It's odd. Yeah. And yeah, lazy, I think.
Yeah, I think, like you say, the only reason is to kind of draw attention to it happening, or like, know that he's getting closer to the bench. But then the thing gets removed, so it's I also thought it was pretty lazy. I can't really think of a better way of, like, resolving that situation when you have the cane left on the bench. But
I have a better way. We've already established that the Baroness has a bit of a crush on Kirkjais. She should have been like, Lohengrin, like, let's have a chat. And when they had their little chat about the Emperor or whatever, she could have, like, sat down on the bench with him and then just be like, someone move this cane, like, call over a servant or whatever and be like, move this cane. Then you just have the conversation between the two of them happen on the bench. And if you want to make it last slightly longer because you've got a bit of extra runtime, she could ask about Kirkjais, and there you go. You've got, like, that's why she wanted to sit on the bench away from the crowd. She wanted to have that conversation.
Yeah, something like that would have been fine. Yeah.
I find it that's so true. That would have been better. More time with the Baroness also would have been better. I do think it's funny that in the plot summary we read, it said, his bomb plan didn't work, minor injuries, except that butler definitely died, right? The one carrying out the case.
Yeah, the bomb plan was a complete wash. Nobody died, right? Except for the guy who was holding the cane when it exploded. That guy, that guy was pasted. He's like, yeah.
Imagine that guy's last thoughts. He's carrying this cane and he's like, hey, this is a pretty nice cane.
It's a nice cane.
It's making a weird sound, but I guess that's the aristocracy for you.
Yeah.
Is this cane ticking?
He put a clock in his cane.
Then we get so the explosion. Okay, the explosion goes off. Kirkias is in the car, tapping away on the 1980s laptop. He realizes what's going on before it happens, and he tries to get into the building, right? And the guards won't let him in. This scene doesn't really serve any purpose except to just frustrate the viewer, I think. Except I guess it demonstrates that Kirkias is smart, which we already know. But yeah, it's very frustrating to watch.
I guess they don't know who he is, which is. But then when the other guy comes out, they're like the captain under whatever his name is, Braunschweig. He's like, oh, who are you? Like, I'm a captain, whatever. And he's like, who are you? And he's like, oh, Vice Admiral Kirkias. So I work for Lowengrab. He's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Please come straight in. But like people don't know who he is yet. Even though when they know his name, they're like, oh, okay, this guy's extremely important. He should have been allowed straight in. But yeah, they're still rising stars, I guess. But I don't know if it was really, really necessary. You don't really learn much else in that short sequence.
I guess the desperation of Kirkias to get in under any circumstance, under any, like he realizes that Lowengrab's in danger, and we see him panic. Bomb goes off, and then we do get Kirkias's actual panic, and this Ansbach guy's panic.
Yeah.
Right, they both go in looking for their boyfriends.
Yeah,
like running around. Yeah, I think it's a very sweet scene. Like, I think it's very very endearing to both of them.
He finds Lowengrab eventually after a little while. Basically fine, not really a scratch on him. Holding a bottle of champagne.
Yeah.
I like that. Lowengrab kind of tries to flirt with him, and then Kirkias doesn't pick up on it at all. He's like, "Yeah, it is your fault. So you owe me a coffee." And Kirkias is like, "Oh, is it my fault?"
I think you're slightly misremembering, because what he does is he flirts with him and he says, "Yeah, it is your fault. You owe me a coffee." Wink, wink.
Yeah.
And then the Baroness comes in and she's like, "Crazy day, huh? Crazy party."
Right, that is what happens.
just come in like a cruise missile to ruin this moment.
Lowengrab under his breath is like, this bitch. Okay.
She
kind of clock blocking.
Finds, clop blocking. Pretty good. It's pretty good. It did make me laugh when I was watching it. Like she just arrives and interjects, and then they stand around watching the painting burn. And the funny thing is, they're all standing there and nobody's putting the painting out. And I thought to myself, like, oh, they're all standing there enjoying the sort of symbolism of the painting burning. And then one of them is like, pretty cool symbolism though, right? Like, I'm pretty sure it's the Baroness is like, well, yeah. It really do be that way though. As the painting is just like, which I just thought was very funny. I don't know if it was intentionally supposed to be funny, but just the idea of these three, because it's exactly the kind of way that you behave when you're like in your early 20s. And I'm not going to do anything about this situation. I'm just going to sort of take in the
vibes.
the vibes of the situation.
Yeah. This is what I mean about the Baroness, though. Like, she's completely involved in the aristocracy. She doesn't want it to be any different. She loves her life. but she also completely knows what's going on and finds it funny when like people get upset about, you know, like some art being burned. Like,
so it ends with the painting burning. The Golden Bound dynasty is effectively narratively now the Kaiser may as well already be dead, because we've been shown the burning painting and the
flower scene and stuff,
and the flower scene. So as far as the viewer is concerned, it's just a matter of time. Then we cut to
the man himself.
A second fire, and this is what I wanted to, like the scene when the building is burning, he's committed suicide in the building, he started this fire in his house. He dismisses his butler and all that kind of stuff, and then there's the police outside, or the army outside, and they're like, we won't open fire because there's a statue of the Kaiser, like in front of the house. I thought this, it kind of like goes back to what we're talking about with image, right? And symbols, and when there is nothing left like upholding the state on the inside, and it just becomes its history or its symbolism. That these police officers feel it would be some sort of transgressive act to open fire on a statue of like a 500-year-old emperor, while a bomb has literally just gone off at a party and people have died.
But it also gives like the Braunschweig the line. He says it's like, oh, that's ridiculous or something. Like, why didn't you do this? Like, oh, well, there's a statue of the Kaiser. It's like, to be ridiculous, even though he spent the whole of the episode like talking about this painting of the Kaiser and like being worried about the painting being on fire and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't know, it just brings the episode to the back to that point, like you're saying about the aesthetics. It's not about the Kaiser really at all. It's just about these people themselves.
Yeah.
I can't help but think about, in respect to like how image is treated with such reverence in terms of that statue. And then you think about in the last couple of years, the protests around the statues and then the laws that have been placed to protect those statues. Or like even the like sort of people getting annoyed at those, like the protests that like people put, the Extinction Rebellion ones where they put their hands and then put it on the art pieces in museums or the paintings in museums. It's a fairly benign protest. It's like extremely peaceful, and people just lose their minds. They're so annoyed about it. When they're like, how dare they do that while their house is on fire and they're going to die in 20 years?
Exactly.
By the sea. And I'm like, it's the pride. It shows very prescient once again. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think it's impossible to do a Legend of the Galactic Heroes podcast without it bleeding into real life politics a little bit. But this like thing about mistaking the map for the territory and mistaking your symbolism for your value system, or mistaking your symbolism for the government itself, right? When people say like, oh, we should take down this statue of like a Baron von Genocide who, ruled over, like, and you're like, I don't know, maybe it's good if we take down that statue and put it somewhere else. I mean, in the Soviet Union, after the Soviet Union fell, people took all the statues of Stalin, they just dumped them in a big Stalin park. And nobody forgot that Stalin existed, to my memory. It's like people say, when you talk about like, oh, this is erasing history. Again, I think you're mistaking the map for the territory, thinking of the symbols of your state as being equivalent to the history or to the reality of your state. And it's, I think, a pretty empty and vapid road to start walking, personally. And I think the show takes the same position.
I mean, it's never about preserving history. It's about continuing that history, I think, and being allowed to carry on with the ideology that led to those symbols in the first place. But you can use this as an excuse as, no, that's not those aren't my intentions. It's all about preserving history. It's not about anything modern, but it is about those things, and it's the same in the show. I think like the removal of these symbols, like allowing for a new era to come into being. But
yeah. I mean, I think the symbolism of your culture or your state or whatever massively outlast the actual state, right? Like you can end up living in a dead institution for a very long time without realizing it, because everything appears to look the same. And I think that's kind of the empire that we step into in Legend of Galactic Heroes, is one where all of the symbolism and the structures of the state have been kept intact, but a lot of the state itself is now like crumbling on the inside. I think the same can be said of real life politics, obviously, where you get so caught up in the theater of whatever institution you're a part of that you don't realize that your house is burning and you're about to get swallowed up by the sea, as Kamal says.
It's crazy that your house is burning and you're about to get swallowed up by the sea at the same time.
You
think one would solve the other.
Yeah. Oh, thank God my house isn't on fire anymore. Problem solved. What rating would you give these episodes? I think I kind of vaguely remember your ratings of the last ones.
Are these episodes 8 and 9?
Yeah.
I would give these the ratings 8 and 9 for each one. Yeah, I really liked episode 9.
I hope that trend continues all the way to episode 110.
Yeah.
That by the time we reach 110 stars, like
10,
there's no comments. Yeah.
Episode 2. Yeah. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I love both of these episodes. I think they're both great. I think obviously they're kind of imperfect because it's Legend of the Galactic Heroes and it's messy always. But I think, as you say, like these are so contained. They have a thesis, right? Like the 2 episodes have a thing to say, like a specific thing to say about images and states and all this kind of stuff. And they also get to be a fun, sort of almost like Pride and Prejudice / PG Woodhouse / Poirot episode at the same time. They're very fun.
Yeah, I think you definitely see a lot of the richness and depth of the show beginning to surface. To go back to like where we started with the narrator having to explain so much of the history and so many of the pieces that are set up for these episodes at the beginning. It's like, because there's just too much to say without a narrator. That now I feel like the show is really like becoming very complex and it has all these moving parts and things. It's cool to see that beginning to happen more.
Great. Does anyone have any other things they want to say?
No, I think that's basically it. I think these are 2 very fun episodes, and I'm excited to watch the next ones.
Yeah.
Do you know what? For the first time, so am I.
For the first time.
And we got there eventually.
Thanks for listening to this episode of In the Skies of Love. We hope you enjoyed our discussion of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. If you have comments or questions, please reach out to us at intheskiesoflove@gmail.com. And you can find Kamel on Twitter at HiKamel. Tune in next time for our review of episodes 10 to whenever the arc ends. And until then, we'll see you in the skies of love.